hard. I mean, maybe not if you're a Chelsea fan or a Tottenham fan, maybe, but it's hard not to feel sympathy for the West Ham fans inside here, because it was miserable, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was palpable. The atmosphere, the defeat had hit them so early in the game, and they just had to sit and suffer and take what was coming. And that's more of the same, more of what they had towards last season. And so you're looking at the manner of their defeat, the manner of how they conceded the goals, and it's such a painful watch.
You highlighted on those stats, they didn't have one booking.
I don't remember a tackle. I don't remember really a tackle in that. Agar getting tight for the goal they scored, and then from about it, the pitch just seemed huge. It's a vast area to cover. It was made bigger by Chelsea. It was made bigger by the lack of energy in the West Ham side.
Absolutely. I think that's the most damning statistic there. You've got to make tackles. You've got to make challenges. You've got to get after people. It was miles too easy for Chelsea. That's 8 goals in 2 games they've conceded. I look at that squad, and I know we're only 2 games in, but that's a squad that's going to be a relegation fight unless they give some manager, unless they give some help to the manager. They need 4, 5, 6 new signings, because it's not like for Graham Potter now, he can look at that squad and go, right, well, I'm going to change 4 or 5 players, going to make a massive difference. It won't. They haven't got the quality. You only look at really Paqueta or Bowen, someone who's going to do something different. Callum Wilson obviously is going to have an impact this season. But defensively today, I've seen some defending in my life. That was as bad as it gets. I highlighted Todibo, I highlighted Wan-Bissaka at half-time. Defending the back post with a bit of desire, a bit of know-how, checking your shoulder, making sure you're in a good position to defend. It was so poor. It was
by the time it got
poor.
to 3, and we got to the second half, did you feel like half that defence didn't know whether they were coming or going?
Confidence is low. Let's be totally honest. But I know it says like with 2 games, the goalkeeper doesn't make it any easier. He's having a really difficult time. You know, he comes out, he flaps at one, just after half time. He probably needs to be changed, because he's not come here full of confidence. He's already made some high-profile mistakes. Live on a Friday night on Sky is not going to help his cause.
It's a hell of a call, that, to change your goalkeeper after 2 games.
But it might. But Areola might have to. At least he's got some experience. Right now, I look at him and I think he needs a little bit of a rest. He's already conceding so many goals, 8 goals in 2 games. He's got some high-profile games coming up here. He's not in a. I personally, he doesn't feel the goal or doesn't feel with any confidence right now. Now, as a goalkeeper, Rob, I mean, do you think I'm being too harsh?
Well, you look at it, and you look across the board, and not to deflect away from the goalkeeper situation, but to add to it, you're coming up against Chelsea. You're in the Premier League. Get the basics right. They conceded 3 from corners, 3 set pieces, conceded 2 soft goals in terms of how the crosses came in last week. They're just not giving themselves a chance. And at the moment, the goalkeeper's in with that as well. You're having to play a perfect game defensively because you're not going to score many, because you've not got that many outlets. It's so far from it.
It's different though, isn't it? If Todibo doesn't play, I'm just picking one of the centre-halves here because he was pulled at half-time. If Todibo doesn't play in their next game, that's one thing, because outfield players do get changed. If your goalkeeper changes, it is different, isn't it?
Well, he needs results. Graham's got to make big decisions, because if you look at the 8 goals that they've conceded, he's been, if you look, he's been at fault for quite a few of them. And it's the same situation at Leicester last year. And I'm not saying he can't be a good goalkeeper and he can't be a success, but sometimes you've got to look at the situation and actually do someone a favour. Now, there's a lot of players. I'm not just picking on him. I could pick on Wan-Bissaka. Some of the goals he was certainly at fault for. Todibo at half-time. The winning challenges, headers, every single set piece that come into the box, it was a Chelsea head that was going to get it. And it wasn't like West Ham were a small side today. He brought in Souček to give him a little bit more aerial dominance. He made no difference. There wasn't enough desire to win first ball, second contact. And that's pretty much summed up West Ham today.
I go back to what we said before the start of the game. Played 1 game in pre-season, Hermansen. He had been injured for the 5 games towards the end of the season. Hadn't played since April in 1 game, and has been thrown in, and it's been a lot to ask him.
If you're Graham Potter, what are you doing now?
Reading the right acts.
Are you?
Yeah. It's just so far from good enough. That, and Jared, you can see it's pretty sombre, but internally absolutely raging. And you just look, and he's right. The goals they concede, how they've gone about it, the energy that's not there in the side, and already you're going to be worried. You're going to be worried in the side. You're going to be worried about how the fans are going to respond in the next game. And it's such a long time. It's such a long time to wait. It feels like, Tuesday's coming. You've got to sit and we'll live through this for the next few days. And it is a brutal experience. And for Graham Potter is going to be even longer.
Yeah, I'm not sure I see him as that sort of guy. I don't see him as a sandwich thrower or throwing the teacups or anything like that. He's just going to be like, okay, we've got to find a way. We've got to pick ourselves up. We're going to have to work hard in training. I think he's got to have some dialogue with the owners here. He needs help. If I'm Sunderland, Burnley, Leeds, I'm looking at West Ham tonight and thinking they're the ones. They're the weakest in the Premier League that we might be able to catch. Now, it hasn't happened over the last few years. The three teams that have come up have normally gone down. But I look at the three teams, they should be looking at West Ham and going, right, we're going to be after you this year, because the confidence is so low. And we're talking 2 games into the season. I know it can sound like it's crazy, but it's not just the performance.
You just get a feeling, don't you?
You get a feeling, and you get this. I look at the squad, you know, and the manager's maybe not coming in with like an abundance of confidence. There's not a lot of belief with him either right now. We're here. But I also have an element of sympathy. When I look at the goals and I look at the defending, I think, what can you do with that?
What about
possible?
What about when you and we've mentioned this all evening? What about when you look at the business, okay, and the transfer business they've done? I mean, it's probably not a fair comparison with their opponents today, who've spent the best part of £270 million, but admittedly have brought in £230 million. That is the gulf in what West Ham have done compared to what Chelsea have done. And the Todibo one was already pre-agreed because there was the obligation to buy. So it's 2 wing-backs, a goalkeeper, and a striker on a free from Newcastle.
Yeah, and I wasn't a massive fan of Todibo on a loan, let alone buying him for £35 million. And then you obviously get rid of Kudus, who's one of your X factors here. Of course, you have to give Diouf a bit of time. He's got to get used to the Premier League. So that was one we have to be, reserved on. Hermansen's had a really difficult start, and hopefully he gets better and things start to improve. But Kyle Walker-Peters on a free transfer, Callum Wilson, I think, is a really good free transfer. But when I look at the players there, who's going to get you off the edge of your seat? Who's going to do something? Who's going to light the spark? And that's what's really a major problem when I look at that squad.
I know, actually, you look at the outs more than the ins.
Yeah, and I look off the pitch as well as on it. And you look at the guys who've walked away from here, Danny Ings, Soufal, Fabianski, guys who weren't going to play every week, Antonio, but they were part of a successful team here, and they were part of what made the dressing room tick. And you need that. And right now you're looking around and going, Jared Bowen, 1. Where is the leaders other than that? You're looking around the game, you're looking around the dressing room, and it feels like there's not that drive there. And it's a horrible thing to say. It's a horrible thing to say about a dressing room. You just don't feel like there's the nastiness in there to turn it around.
We can show you how Graham Potter's career here at West Ham has begun, which a graphic like that, Jamie, is stark, isn't it? But it doesn't really take in circumstances or nuances or anything. When he took over, they were 14th. They finished last season 14th and were 2 games in.
Yeah, I suppose the only problem is for Graham Potter is they've not improved in terms of performances, and I think that's what everybody expected. They expected a different maybe style of play, things to improve. I watched I think it was, I might be right, the Aston Villa away game. I think they drew 2-2, and I thought, okay, there's a few signs there, and everyone was getting excited. But that's the problem. It hasn't really changed since then. But as I said, for the risk of repeating myself, that squad isn't good enough. They haven't got enough good players. I look at them in midfield today. I've been a huge fan of James Ward-Prowse, and Souček does, he's obviously got the things that he does really well. He's got his attributes. But that midfield just couldn't get near, didn't have the legs to get around a Chelsea.
As a 2.
As a 2. And that system, obviously playing 3 at the back with wing-backs, it gives you a major problem, because when you play 3 up, you got outnumbered in there. But even if you can play over 2, which obviously teams do, you have to be high energy. You have to be able to get after teams. And they haven't got that in there. So where do they need to improve? I think defensively. I think in midfield they need to get someone with real legs. They need to get players that can get around the pitch and move and play with the ball and make sure they can get on the ball and show responsibility, passion, personality. They haven't really got that in there. And that's no disrespect to them, because I think it'd have been hard for any 2 to play against that 3 in there, because Chelsea were that good. But they need to get numbers, need to get more quality into the building. Otherwise, this is going to be an incredibly long season, and there'll be, unfortunately, and we're talking 2 games in, there'll be other managers coming in here, and that's not always the answer.
You're right in how you say about the legs, and you worry about how they're going to go about it. You can't have wholesale change. You can't have, 8, 9 players between now and the end of the season. And Graham's right not to say, like, I'm working with what I've got. He's right not to go out and say, I need help, because it's detrimental to what's in the dressing room right now. It's bad
Plenty
enough.
of other managers do that, though.
Yeah.
Plenty of other managers do that.
Marco
don't
Silva's
they?
done it today.
You know.
He's saying he needs a bit of help.
I
with it.
need-
Not
I need
immediately
this, or I
after a
need-
5-1 defeat.
Oh, no, okay.
No,
All right.
yeah.
So
And
it's the time.
I get what you mean there.
Yeah,
I get what
you
mean.
can't come out and say that. I'm saying I'd read in the right act. I've never been a manager. I'm not a manager of West Ham, and I probably never will be. But you've got to manage what's in that dressing room. And right now, he's looking around going, I know it's not good enough. I know. I'm asking guys, and they're on the pitch, and it looks like they know they can't do it. You've got the midfield. The defence, we saw, try to get tight at times, but they can't do it all the time. The forwards haven't got the legs to go and get tight. So all of a sudden, you're in this horrible in-between position where you just get torn apart, and that's where they were.
And their next game is actually quite a horrible in-between fixture, really, in the sense of it's the Carabao Cup. Different teams have different priorities. Now, away at Wolves, bearing in mind what's happened to them at the start of the season, I know he said, Jamie, it's about, maybe giving a couple of other players who haven't had a chance yet a chance. But does that feel big to you now?
I mean, I think Nottingham Forest and Spurs feels bigger.
Well, yeah.
But I
narrative,
totally get what
whatever
you're saying.
happens,
Yeah,
the narrative builds.
you're just going to add pressure on yourself, and that is the major problem. I look at those fixtures. You got Nottingham Forest were brilliant against Brentford last week. And then obviously Spurs, one of their biggest rivals, come in here. And, with Spurs and the capabilities they have going forward, they can cause anybody problems. So right now, every single game on that list looks incredibly difficult. Do you want to go to Everton? They're just about to sign some really good players. They just signed Tyler Dibling. Now, Jack Grealish should be up to speed by then. How difficult is that going to be? So right now, they are in a bit of a mess. Now, the only way to turn it around, if he isn't going to bring any players in, Rob, maybe they won't do that, who knows, is you've got to work hard with the players you've got. You've got to get some togetherness. You've got to get a system that works, because I think he's playing with a 3 because he doesn't trust any of them in the back 4. I think that's why he's playing that system. I look at Wan-Bissaka as a right wing-back. It doesn't really suit him. He's played right-back pretty much all of his career. And everyone in there defensively, nobody's really looks like a leader or taking any kind of responsibility. Tadibo, Kilman, Aguirre, first half was poor. It was a really bad whole unit, from the goalkeeper with that back 5. All of them just didn't play to the level they should be.
What do you do at Wolves?
I tell you what, if I'm not been in these 11, this starting 11 for the past 2 games, say, this is a real opportunity now. I cannot be in a better position. Those games are brilliant games not to play in for West Ham if you're a West Ham player. And then if you're being brought in for that, you're saying, I've got a real chance here to make a difference. It's gone as badly as it could have done. I tell you what, I put in a performance here. I'm giving myself a chance of playing the next game, because realistically,
Sorry,
they're all
brilliant games not to play in.
If you're a Chelsea, if you're a West Ham player, yeah. If you're a West Ham player and you're Emerson, who was sat next to us up there in the stand, you were sat there going, this is a real opportunity. I tell you what, this couldn't have gone worse for everyone else. It's a great thing for me. I'll go out there and prove what I can do.